Emma, Norman, and Ray are three extremely intelligent orphans that share a happy and structured life at the Gracefield house with 35 other kids. At breakfast, we meet Mom and Isabella. She tends to the kids with patience and care. Following breakfast, the kids are shown demonstrating their intellectual aptitude in a series of tests, which Emma, Norman, and Ray all passed with perfect scores. The kids then engage in a game of tag on the large green fields and among the lush trees of the forest that surround Gracefield. Norman seemingly disappears into the forest, with nobody able to find him, until Emma accidentally stumbles upon the outer limits of the forest and notices him gazing at the low-level fence at the border. There's a discussion of what the outside world must be like, and the kids all take turns dreaming about that fated day when they're adopted and finally leave Gracefield. One of the younger kids, Conny, was actually adopted that very day. After a day of play and fun, Conny bids a tearful farewell to her gracious family and is led away from the house by Isabella. During cleanup, Emma comes across Conny's beloved stuffed animal, Little Bunny, knowing that she can't possibly make the transition into her new foster home without her dearest friend. She takes Norman and attempts to return the doll to Conny. The pair makes their way to the gate, where a truck lies waiting in the stone corridor. Emma assumes that if she leaves the bunny in the back of the truck, Conny will eventually find it, but when she goes to place it, she discovers a horrific scene: Conny's lifeless body. They hear voices from another room and immediately go to hide under the truck. Horrified, they see a figure that looks like a demon monster.
Isabella.
はい。
このフルスコア3匹も出荷できるよう仕上げておけ。
かしこまりました。
待て。何かにおう。
She and Norman both struggled to muffle their screams of terror as the monsters discussed how the kids were being raised as high quality, eat for rich and powerful monsters. Suddenly, one of the monsters calls Mom and tells her to ensure that the delivery of the high-quality goods goes off without incident. In a matter of moments, Emma and Norman's entire world has been shattered, revealing the terrible truth of their lives. Realizing that the Gracefield house is actually a farm, raising humans as food for the demons, they eventually escape from the corridor, running back to the house. That night, she and Norman were discussing what to do next. When Norman suggests they should plan on escaping, Emma is reluctant, not wanting to leave. Other kids were there to die. Meanwhile, Isabella discovers the stuffed animal Emma had left beside the truck when they fled. Emma can barely hide her look of terror upon hearing and seeing Mama for the first time since their discovery, but Norman tells her they have to keep smiling like nothing's wrong. Mama may know someone was at the gate to leave the bunny behind, but she doesn't know who. During playtime, Emma and Norman agree escaping through the forest is the safest way, but when they cross the short fence, they soon encounter a massive, seamless concrete wall. Things get even more complicated when a little girl is involved. Lost, all Mama has to do is take a glance at her watch, and she knows exactly where to find her. So now they know that security is rather lax because they have some kind of tracking device implanted somewhere in their bodies. Back at the house, while having a private moment of grief for Conny, Mama suddenly appears before Emma, wondering why she's been less cheerful of late. Ray ends up bailing them both out when he rings the dinner bell. But as Emma and Norman depart, Mama asks them straight up if they were at the gate the previous night. They cheerfully say, of course not, and that's against the rules, and continue on. But Mama's definitely suspicious. Once they're alone again, neither can hold in their sheer terror anymore. They're going to get out of here. They just need a plan. That plan involves stashing a bunch of table linen in a tree hollow near the wall that they'll use to make rope when the time comes to escape. They have 2 months left before the next child is taken, but someone followed them out to the wall. Fortunately for them, it's their friend Ray who wants to know what's up. They tell him, and to their amazement, he believes it at all, because he knows Norman well enough to know he'd never lie about something like this while Ray is willing to help. With the big escape plan, there is a big problem with Emma's insistence that all 37 children will be escaping later. Isabella introduces a new infant named Carol and an adult helper named Sister Conny. Conny is already planning to take her boss place. Meanwhile, Emma, Norman, and Ray have just one more difficult variable to consider during their preparations for what's already looking like a hopeless escape plan. When told to think like the enemy when finding a place where a tracking device could be implanted, she inspects Carol, the newest addition to the farm, and finds a red bump. Behind her ear, they agree that it's too risky to attempt to destroy their ear trackers as it could trigger the alarm, so they focus on getting everyone out first. The trio decides to disguise the escape as a harmless game of tag so they can work on improving the kids' physical condition while Norman and Ray coach them up on the proper way to survive. Unfortunately, Sister Conny is suspicious about their plans and intends to ship them out sooner than their official ship date so she can accuse Isabella of breaking protocol and grab power later. Norman and Ray put the pieces together to determine there was a traitor. Among them, Isabella promises Conny that if she cooperates, she'll be a mama of her own. Predictably, Conny privately fumes and resolves to unseat Isabella rather than wait to be promoted. Meanwhile, Emma, Norman, and Ray continue their escape practice disguised as a game of tag, only this time the teams are led by older kids rather than everyone on their own. The trio suspects Gilda or Don to be the traitor. Later that evening, the trio shares their secret with two other children, Don and Gilda, although Norman chooses not to tell them that Conny is dead. Norman lies about the kids who left being victims of human trafficking. Since the cold reality might just be too much, Gilda and Don ultimately both agree that an escape attempt is the only choice. Ray doesn't like how Norman left out the truth to Gilda and Don about all the kids dying and being eaten, but for Norman, the escape must come first. He's also set traps for Gilda and Don by giving them different locations for their escape rope. That night, Emma pretends to sleep and watches Gilda sneak out of the bedroom. What Emma can't see through the door is that someone slips a piece of paper under Isabella's door, with the location of the rope under Norman's bed after the paper is delivered. Gilda visits a friend's room, and Emma listens in from behind that door. Things get a little tense in there, with evidence wavering between Gilda being Conny's informant and not. But in the end, Gilda does what Emma hoped for and refuses to give up any information. When Norman and Ray searched the two spots where the rope was hidden, Norman said there was nothing under the bed, and Ray said that must mean Don is the traitor. Only now Norman is convinced that Ray has been the real traitor all along, since he was the only one knew about this place. For his part, Ray doesn't deny anything, but he does explain that he did it because it had to be done. Norman agrees to forgive Ray as long as he agrees to be his spy as well. Ray agrees, but only if Norman tricks Emma into thinking or taking everyone other than Gilda and Don. The little ones will be a burden both during and after the escape, and Ray didn't spend years being Mama's informant for everyone to get killed in a futile attempt to get everyone out. Later, Ray meets with Isabella, telling her the others continue to use the game tag as practice, but focus as Mama on Sister. Franny is the primary threat. Later, Ray admits to Emma that he's Mama's informant. Gilda and Don feel left out of most of the private conversation between the other three, but Gilda and Emma start observing Mama more closely, and Emma discovers there's a secret room where she does something. Don is itching to get in there, but Ray urges caution, and Norman agrees. But Don doesn't know that Conny is dead, and so he wants to escape and save her. To that end, he and Gilda enter Mama's room, and Gilda slides a bookshelf aside to reveal a locked door. Don persists in creating increasingly tense situations for himself and Gilda, and is obsessed with learning the truth. The other three won't tell them so if he steals Mama's key. Meanwhile, Norman, Gilda, and Ray agree that in order to escape and survive, they'll have to gather as much information as possible about the outside world and how they'll be able to live there. Within many books in the library, there are book plates bearing the name William Minerva and various words in Morse code. If they can figure out the order of those words, they may be able to glean some kind of useful information that Bill is trying to secretly relay to them. It gives the kids hope that there might be other humans out there. People are resisting the demon hegemony.
Take you